What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 198 of the Stand Up Guys podcast. I'm your host, Incomparable Zach Jones, and this will be part 4 of a series of videos I'm doing reviewing the latest Amazon Prime show, Batman Cape Crusader. Today, I will be talking about episodes 7 and 8, which feature the villains Onomatopoeia and Nocturna. So just as I did in prior episodes, I'm going to first give you the brief kind of Wikipedia synopsis of the episode, and then I'll just go through and highlight a couple things that I noticed. So episode 7 is called Moving Target. It was written by Adama and Adani Ebo. Not familiar with this writing team. I assume they're most likely siblings, or I guess it could be a husband and wife team. That does happen as well. But yeah, I'm not familiar with these two. Okay, so the synopsis reads as thus. Jim fears that someone put a bounty on his head after assassins such as Floyd Lawton and Onomatopoeia come to Gotham, and the former almost succeeds at killing him. He reluctantly agrees to be escorted to a safe house at Wayne Gardens, but Onomatopoeia's group finds them. Meanwhile, Batman learns the hit was placed by a Blackgate Penitentiary inmate named Bowler and follows Jim's detail. Narrowly fending off the assassins, Batman reveals to Jim while getting the contract canceled, he discovered Barbara is the true target. Officer Jim Corrigan attempts to claim the bounty for himself, but is disarmed by Jim Gordon and arrested. Moeller later reveals he ordered the hit because he feels he deserves better prison accommodations. Okay. I like this episode decently. I did notice a few things though. So number one, I thought it was a kind of a peculiar use of Floyd Lawton, who of course in the comics is Deadshot, famous for not missing. And here it seemed like he was kind of punked out pretty easily. And they also have Jim Corrigan be the one that shoots him to kind of, obscure his turn later on in the episode. And I'm trying to think because I've read a lot of comics, and I think most prominently, and this makes sense, in the comics, Jim Corrigan was in the Gotham Central series written by Ed Brubaker and Greg Rucka, so it makes sense that he would be featured here. And in that comic as well, he was a traitor. So he's consistent in both comics and now on TV. Let's see. Oh, I noted there's tension between Barbara and her father, which I liked because in this, universe, she is an attorney. He is a police officer. She's a defense attorney, and so, he thinks she's basically getting criminals who should be in jail out of jail, and she's saying it's more complicated than that. Not everything's black and white, and the police aren't necessarily always doing their job right, so this is causing tension between them. So we find out that the guy that put the hit, we think first on Jim Gordon, but then we find out Barb, is this guy named Moeller. And he was Barbara's client. She did the best she could for him, but he's rich and powerful, and he doesn't think she should have lost his case. So he's basically just getting revenge because he ended up in prison. I'm okay with this storyline. I gotta say, though, I kind of wish that Moeller was not just a no-name guy and was actually... I think they missed an opportunity here. He could have been like somebody in the Batman world, like a known villain. I think that would be just a pretty cool way to introduce another villain into this world rather than just being, oh yeah, this is just some random guy. Although maybe that's the point, I don't know. But I thought maybe they missed something cool there. As far as onomatopoeia goes, I wrote he is silly, but he's fun. Um, I don't know how much character development you can get out of him, being that he has this kind of simple gimmick of only being able to say, onomatopoeia sound effect type words. But it would be interesting if they could actually find a way to give him depth without necessarily betraying his gimmick. He, of course, I think came to prominence. I don't know if he's an original creation of Kevin Smith. I think he might be, but if not, he definitely came to prominence in the Green Lantern, or no, Green Arrow comic book run that Kevin Smith wrote. And then also Kevin Smith did a couple Batman books, and he was featured in that as well. And you know what? A lot of people don't like his Batman books. And like they're supposed to, he did two of them. There was supposed to be a third one. And he said as he wrote it, but it never got finished or whatever. And I think it's kind of a bummer. I would have liked to seen the end of that story, because actually the second volume ends on a cliffhanger involving the character of Onomatopoeia, which I thought was pretty cool. And so, I don't know. Hopefully that project will see the light of day someday, but I wouldn't count on it. But yeah, again, kind of a silly gimmick, but fun enough. Some of these villains, though, that they're using in this first season, I kind of wonder if they'll ever go back to the well. One thing I noticed is Corrigan could have actually pretty easily succeeded in taking out Barbara, because there's at one point where they're in the house and they're being shot at. Like, he could have easily shot her there. Although I guess you could say the other guys, hitmen, were trying to also kill him. So it would have made sense for him to keep her alive long enough to try to do away with them. But then, if he would have just shot her instead of explaining his evil plan, like a James Bond villain, he totally could have got away with it. But he made the mistake so many villains make. He just couldn't keep his mouth shut. So yeah, I think that's most of all what I have to say about that episode. Not too much. I thought it was, again, I liked that it was a pretty grounded episode. It does kind of feel like a story I've seen before in other mediums, or even in television as well, where you got somebody being protected, but there is somebody on the inside that's secretly the bad guy, and that reveal. But I didn't necessarily see that turn coming in this episode, although because I knew how Jim Corrigan was used in the comics, I did kind of suspect that he'd eventually be kind of a bad guy. Although this is basically like an Elseworlds type universe that plays by its own rules, so who knows? He could have been a good guy in this universe. All right. Speaking of the Elseworld nature of this Batman universe, let's get into episode 9. Or no, sorry, episode 8. Episode 8. So episode 8 is entitled Nocturne. Yet another episode written by Haley Gross. Okay, so the synopsis. Amidst a fundraiser carnival for Dent's campaign, multiple orphans are reported missing. Batman soon finds the culprit, Natalia Knight, the younger sister of inventor Anton Knight, who suffers from a mysterious ailment that can only be staved off by draining energy from people which grants her enhanced strength. After falling out with and attacking Anton for his perceived controlling behavior, Natalia continues her attacks until she is intercepted by Batman. After making her realize she accidentally killed Anton, who begged Batman to stop her before he died, Batman takes Natalia to safety while her victims are taken to a hospital to recover. Meanwhile, Dent meets with Thorne to accept his donation, but refuses to accept his condition of dropping charges against Thorne's friend. In retaliation, Thorne's second throws a flask of acid in Dent's face. Okay. Um, so once again, just like with the Gentleman Ghost episode, we got yet another supernatural villain. As I noted in that episode, I'm not the biggest fan of them using supernatural villains in this series. Because I think, for the most part, it feels like a fairly grounded world, and I just prefer like the more realistic villains in this world. Um, but here we go with Nocturnal. One thing I did notice is like there's some characters that are being played not by like maybe A-list celebrities, but people we've heard of. Like for example, in this episode, Natalia Knight is voiced by McKenna Grace, and Anton is voiced by Haley Joel Osment. Now, nothing against these two. I think they're both fine actors, but a part of me is like, budget wise, would they have gotten these actors? Would have been a more expensive these like name actors rather than just like you know people who are common voice actors. I only ask that because while these two are fine actors, like they don't have like really distinct enough voices to where I think like if it cost them much more in the budget that it would necessarily be worth it, that expense, rather than just hiring voice acting veterans. But that's just a little thing I noticed. Okay, so here's the big thing in this episode, and what really makes one of the things that makes this universe very different from other Batman continuities is the orphans here. So we got Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, Stephanie Brown, and Carrie Kelly, all orphans, and you know I don't know where they're going with this. Like, because I have to imagine this is something they will revisit. And a part of me is like, is Bruce going to straight up adopt all four of these kids? Or is it going to be like a thing where like he's going to make one of them Robin, but like will it be dead? Like, and then we have to like go along for that ride of like I don't know like it, but also it'd be kind of weird if they just like totally dropped it and he never interacted with these kids again. So like this of course is assuming they get more seasons. So and no Tim. So maybe Tim is not orphaned yet. Maybe that's still to come. I don't know. I also thought it was funny that like Jason they call it Jace, like, but all the other ones it's like Dickie, Steffi, Carrie. Well, I guess Carrie you don't have to change, but it all like I'm like, do all these kids have to have like you know short like nicknames like that? Dickie and Steffi. But here we go. But yeah, I'm curious what you guys think if what they're going to do that with it. It would be weird, right, if he just adopted all of them and had like four like Robins running around. I don't want that. That's another. Actually, to be honest, even in well, in Batman the Animated Series, Robin was like a college student, so it seemed more reasonable. Um, but again, like since I like the more realistic take on Batman, I almost hope that they don't have he doesn't make any of these kids sidekicks. This would be my preference. Even if he like maybe he does adopt him at some point and before the show is over, they insinuate that maybe he's going to train them. But I don't know. I just don't want him with like all these like little kid sidekicks running around, which I don't really think they're gonna do. But like I said, I don't think they set this up for nothing. Um, Bruce's date in this episode is Julie Madison, who I believe in like his earliest comic book adventures, his first love interest, I think, was Julie Madison. And she has been in different like comics throughout the ages, but I don't think anyone's ever done anything really interesting with the Julie Madison character. So I'm curious to see if this is just like a one-off reference, or if they actually will try to do something with the Julie Madison character. Um, it's kind of just a curiosity. I feel like there's these women like Silver St. Cloud is another one, and I feel like there's been a couple where like Bruce dated like long enough to where like they had names that like people remember and stuff, but like nothing really substantial ever happens with them, and then they just kind of go by the wayside. At least with Catwoman, because she has the Catwoman gimmick, like she'll stick around. Um, but yeah, I kind of think it'd be interesting if they ever did anything. I don't know. I think there's maybe a missed opportunity. I mean, I don't want all of his women to be like superheroes or anything, but I don't know. It'd be cool if they could find a cool role for uh, some one of them. Um, okay, I wrote Bruce inexplicably likes Harvey Dent because most depictions of Harvey Dent are he's his really affable good guy on the outside. He's got this like tortured and angry part of himself on the inside, which after he's um, injured and becomes Two Face, that part that he hid on his inside is allowed to come out. This Dent is different in that, for the most part, his bad qualities are outward facing, and anything good in him is deep down. And this is even explored more in the last two episodes, which I will review on the next episode. Um, but part of me is like that traditional version of Dent. You can see why Bruce would support him. This version of Dent seems so lousy that I am surprised Bruce is friends with him, and not just that he's friends with him, that he supports his mayoral campaign and all that kind of stuff. Unless we're saying that Bruce is kind of smart enough to see that Dent is more on the inside or something like that. But yeah, this Dent, this version of Dent, he's such a cad that like I have a it starts to question your mind like uh, Bruce's like logic, um, or his reasonability or perception of kind of not seeing this guy for what he is. We also get Leslie Tompkins. I'm gonna say I really like the Leslie Tompkins character, and I don't think she is used enough in the comic books. Because very much in Batman the Animated Series and in some of the comics, she is basically um, viewed as a surrogate mother to Bruce, and I really like that role for her because much as how Bruce found a surrogate father in Alfred, well, not necessarily in this Batman universe, but in the mainline Batman continuity, I like the idea that Leslie Tompkins became a surrogate mother, and I always thought in the comics they should actually make Leslie Tompkins a bigger part of Bruce's world and make her fit that role even more so. Um, so yeah, I can't. Now in this continuity, like I don't know if it totally mentions. Like I think Bruce says he met her when he was a child or what. I don't know if they do the whole thing of like. I don't think they spell it out that like she comforted him after his parents were killed. But she heads up this orphanage, and that's obviously a good role for her. Of course, in the comics and Batman the Animated Series, she is like a doctor, and she actually has a clinic. But same basic character. Someone who's trying to do good and help society. I wrote so at one point, uh, Stephanie Brown goes missing, and so Bruce is looking for her, and he sees her with Natalia Knight, the Nocturna character, and they go into a house of mirrors, and he follows them in there, and he gets so flummoxed by all the mirrors, he can't find his way out. So he literally just like kicks a hole in the wall, and I'm thinking like Bruce is one of the smartest guys in the DC universe. Traditionally, he's Batman. He's the world's greatest detective. And so it kind of makes him look terrible that he couldn't find his way out of this Hall of Mirrors. I mean, what if he was dressed as Batman here instead of Bruce Wayne? We'd be like, what? Batman wasn't smart enough to find his way out of a Hall of Mirrors? I don't know. It's just one of those things that stuck with me, and I thought was a little bit silly. And then we're also introduced to Killer Croc here. So far, though, not portrayed as a bad guy. He's just kind of a circus worker, and he suspects that Bruce is up to no good because he's wrecking wrecking their Hall of Mirrors. Um, so we get that interaction. Um, but yeah, I think that's pretty much it as far as my notes about that episode. Of course, we do end with again the through line of this whole season is kind of dense story, and so we know it had to happen. Well, I'll be honest. I was hoping it wouldn't happen this season, but it did. I was hoping they'd draw it out even longer. But end of this episode, he does get the acid thrown in his face, and also, I guess there's only so many ways you can burn half of the guy's face off. But like, traditionally in the comics, and it's acid in his face. Um, and then in the Dark Knight, they did a twist on that, and it actually gets like burned off with fire. I don't know. I was hoping they would think of some clever thing that I wouldn't see coming, but no, they just went back to the traditional like acid in the face. And I was like, it's fine. But yeah, that's how we end this one. Um, I think overall, I probably liked the moving target episode more so than this one, but both were, I think, decent. Again, not the biggest fan of the supernatural villains. I'm hoping if they get a second season, they lean more towards the more realistic psychological villains. But and again, I think my biggest Takeaway was just what are they going to do with the kids if they get a second season? I'm curious how that's going to shake out. All right. Well, guys, comment down below. Let me know what you thought of these episodes and where you think they'll go in the future. Again, if they get a second season, which I'm curious how this is doing on streaming. But fingers crossed, we'll get a second season, at least. But anyway, yeah, comment down below. Let me know what you think. As always, please subscribe to the channel, both to the YouTube channel, and you can subscribe in audio form on your podcast catcher of choice. Leave thumbs up, positive reviews, all that good stuff. If you like, you can follow me over on Twitter/X at Zach Jones Live. That's ZachJonesLive. But that'll do it for all of my shenanigans and poppycock this episode. Please, please, please tune in again to next episode. Bye, guys.